The morning sun cast long shadows across the Marine Corps base as Sarah Martinez adjusted her uniform one final time before stepping out of her quarters. At 22 years old, she had spent the last 18 months proving herself in a world dominated by men. But today felt different. Today, she would face the ultimate test of respect and recognition that had eluded her since the day she first set foot on this base. Sarah had grown up in a small town in Texas where her father worked as a mechanic and her mother taught elementary school. From an early age, she displayed an unusual combination of physical strength and intellectual curiosity that set her apart from her peers. While other girls her age were interested in typical teenage activities, Sarah spent her free time reading military history and practicing martial arts at the local community center. The decision to join the Marines came naturally to her. She had always been drawn to structure, discipline, and the idea of serving something greater than herself. Her parents were initially hesitant, worried about their daughter entering such a demanding and traditionally male-dominated field, but they eventually came to support her choice when they saw the determination in her eyes. Basic training had been brutal. Sarah quickly learned that being a woman in the Marines meant constantly proving herself worthy of respect. The physical demands were intense, but she discovered that the mental challenges were often more difficult. Many of her fellow recruits and some instructors seemed to view her presence as either a novelty or a burden. Some openly questioned whether women belonged in combat roles at all. Despite these obstacles, Sarah excelled in every aspect of her training. She consistently scored among the top performers in physical fitness tests, marksmanship, and tactical exercises. Her instructors noted her exceptional leadership potential and recommended her for advanced training programs. However, success in training was one thing. Earning respect in the real world of military service proved to be entirely different. When Sarah arrived at her first permanent duty station, she quickly realized that her reputation had preceded her. Some Marines viewed her achievements with skepticism, suggesting that standards had been lowered to accommodate women. Others seemed to regard her as a curiosity, something to be observed rather than accepted as an equal member of their unit. The base where Sarah was stationed housed several thousand Marines across various specialties. It was a sprawling complex with multiple training areas, administrative buildings, and living quarters. The hierarchy was clearly defined, with junior enlisted personnel like Sarah at the bottom of the command structure. Above them were non-commissioned officers, senior NCOs, company-grade officers, field-grade officers, and, at the very top, the general officers who commanded entire installations or major units. Sarah's immediate supervisor was Staff Sergeant Johnson, a veteran Marine with 15 years of service who had deployed multiple times to combat zones. Johnson was known for being tough but fair, and he had a reputation for developing young Marines into effective leaders. From their first meeting, he made it clear that he would judge Sarah solely on her performance and dedication to the Corps. The other Marines in her unit were a diverse group representing various backgrounds and experiences. Some were fresh out of boot camp like Sarah, while others had already completed multiple deployments. The unit included specialists in communications, logistics, intelligence, and combat operations. Each Marine had their own story and reasons for joining, but they were united by their commitment to the Corps and to each other. During her first few weeks on base, Sarah focused on learning her assigned duties and integrating into the unit culture. She worked in the communications section, where her technical aptitude and attention to detail quickly became apparent. Her job involved maintaining and operating sophisticated radio and satellite communication equipment that was essential for coordinating military operations. The work was demanding and required constant vigilance. Communication failures could have serious consequences during training exercises or real-world operations. Sarah approached her responsibilities with the same intensity she had shown during basic training, often staying late to ensure that equipment was properly maintained and all procedures were followed correctly. Despite her professional competence, Sarah noticed that some Marines continued to treat her differently than they treated their male colleagues. The differences were sometimes subtle, being excluded from informal conversations, having her opinions dismissed more quickly, or being assigned tasks that seemed designed to test her patience rather than her abilities. Other times, the treatment was more overt, with comments about her appearance or speculation about her personal life. Sarah developed various strategies for dealing with these challenges. She learned when to confront inappropriate behavior directly and when to document incidents for potential formal complaints. She also found allies among both male and female Marines who recognized her abilities and treated her with the respect she had earned through her performance. One particularly difficult period came during a major training exercise that simulated combat operations in a desert environment. The exercise lasted for 3 weeks and involved several thousand Marines from multiple units. Sarah's communications team was responsible for maintaining contact between forward operating bases and headquarters elements throughout the exercise area. The conditions were harsh, with extreme temperatures during the day and cold nights. Water was rationed, and Marines had to carry all their equipment and supplies over long distances. Sleep was limited, and the stress of simulated combat operations tested everyone's endurance and mental resilience. During the second week of the exercise, Sarah's unit came under simulated enemy attack while she was manning a critical communication relay station. The scenario required her to maintain communications while defending her position against a larger attacking force. Her performance during this test would be evaluated by senior officers and could significantly impact her future assignments and promotions. As enemy forces approached her position, Sarah coordinated defensive fires while simultaneously managing multiple communication networks. She had to relay targeting information to artillery units, request reinforcements, and maintain contact with higher headquarters. The complexity of the situation required her to make rapid decisions under extreme pressure while managing multiple tasks simultaneously. Sarah's training proved effective as she successfully coordinated the defense of her position while maintaining all essential communications. Her calm demeanor and clear thinking under pressure impressed the evaluators and her fellow Marines. When the exercise concluded, several senior NCOs specifically mentioned her performance in their after-action reports. However, not everyone was willing to acknowledge her success. Some Marines suggested that the exercise scenarios had been modified to ensure her success, while others claimed that she had received assistance that would not have been available to male Marines in similar situations. These comments frustrated Sarah, but she had learned to focus on the opinions of those whose judgment she respected rather than trying to convince every skeptic. The months following the training exercise brought new challenges and opportunities. Sarah was selected for additional technical training that would qualify her for more advanced communication systems. This training would require her to spend several months at a specialized school where she would learn to operate and maintain equipment used by special operations units. The selection for this training was highly competitive, and Sarah was one of only 3 Marines from her base chosen for the program. The announcement of her selection generated mixed reactions from her unit. Some Marines congratulated her and expressed pride in her achievement, while others questioned whether she had been selected based on merit or to fulfill diversity requirements. Sarah refused to let these doubts undermine her confidence. She had worked harder than most of her peers and had consistently demonstrated superior performance in every aspect of her duties. If some people chose to attribute her success to factors other than her abilities, that was their problem, not hers. The specialized training took place at a base on the West Coast where Sarah joined Marines from units across the Corps. The curriculum was intensive and covered advanced communication technologies, encryption systems, and coordination procedures used in special operations. The training days were long, and the academic requirements were demanding, but Sarah thrived in the challenging environment. Her classmates included some of the most technically proficient Marines in the Corps, and the competition was fierce. Sarah quickly established herself as one of the top performers in the class, earning respect from both instructors and fellow students. For the first time since joining the Marines, she felt that she was being evaluated purely on her abilities rather than through the lens of gender stereotypes. The training culminated in a comprehensive examination that tested both theoretical knowledge and practical application of the systems and procedures they had learned. Sarah scored among the highest in her class and was selected to serve as a student instructor for the final week of training. This role required her to teach some of the more complex procedures to Marines who were struggling with the material. Teaching proved to be one of Sarah's natural strengths. She had a gift for breaking down complex concepts into understandable components and helping others master difficult skills. Several Marines who had initially been skeptical of her abilities became strong supporters after experiencing her patient and effective instruction. When the training concluded, Sarah returned to her home base with new qualifications and increased confidence in her abilities. She was assigned to work with the unit's most advanced communication systems and was given additional responsibilities for training other Marines. Her technical expertise and teaching abilities made her a valuable asset to her unit, Her reputation began to spread beyond her immediate chain of command. However, the broader culture of the base remained challenging for Sarah and other female Marines. While individual relationships had improved over time, institutional attitudes changed more slowly. Some Marines continued to view women as temporary visitors rather than permanent members of the core family. These attitudes were reflected in various ways throughout daily military life. Female Marines often faced different standards for appearance and behavior than their male counterparts. They were sometimes excluded from informal networks that were important for career development and unit cohesion. Many felt pressure to be perfect in every aspect of their performance, knowing that any failure would be attributed to their gender rather than individual shortcomings. Sarah found support among other female Marines who shared similar experiences and challenges. They formed informal networks to share information, provide mutual support, and advocate for fair treatment. These relationships became crucial for maintaining morale and persistence in the face of ongoing obstacles. Despite these systemic challenges, Sarah continued to excel in her professional duties. Her technical expertise became widely recognized throughout the base, and she was frequently called upon to solve complex communication problems that other Marines could not resolve. Her reputation as a reliable and competent Marine gradually spread through the chain of command. One particular incident that helped establish Sarah's reputation occurred during a routine training exercise that suddenly became a real-world emergency. A civilian aircraft had crashed in a remote area near the base, and Marine units were called upon to assist in search and rescue operations. Sarah was part of the communication team that coordinated the response effort. The crash site was located in difficult terrain that made communication challenging. Standard radio systems were not effective due to the mountainous landscape and distance from communication towers. Sarah recommended using specialized equipment and procedures she had learned during her advanced training to establish reliable communications between the crash site and the Rescue Coordination Center. Her technical solution proved crucial to the success of the rescue operation. The communication system she established allowed rescue teams to coordinate their efforts effectively and ultimately led to the successful evacuation of survivors from the crash site. Several lives were saved as a direct result of the reliable communications that Sarah had made possible. The success of this real-world mission brought Sarah to the attention of senior officers who had not previously been aware of her capabilities. Word of her contribution to the rescue operation spread throughout the base and eventually reached the office of the commanding general. This recognition would prove significant in ways that Sarah could not yet anticipate. As her reputation grew, Sarah began to notice subtle changes in how she was treated by other Marines. Conversations became more inclusive, and her technical opinions carried more weight in planning discussions. Some Marines who had previously been dismissive began to seek her advice on communication-related matters. However, respect was not universal, and Sarah continued to face challenges from Marines who seemed determined to undermine her credibility. These individuals often used subtle tactics designed to frustrate and discourage rather than direct confrontation that could result in formal disciplinary action. Sarah learned to navigate these challenges while maintaining her professionalism and focus on mission accomplishment. She documented inappropriate behavior when necessary, but tried to address most issues through direct communication and by consistently demonstrating her competence and dedication. The combination of technical expertise, leadership potential, and resilience under pressure had positioned Sarah for recognition that would soon test everything she had learned about earning respect in the Marine Corps. Her journey from a young woman trying to prove herself to a Marine whose abilities were recognized at the highest levels was about to reach a pivotal moment that would define her future in the Corps. The news arrived on a Wednesday morning that would change everything for Sarah and set in motion events that would test every lesson she had learned about respect, dignity, and perseverance in the Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Johnson called her into his office with an expression that was difficult to read, somewhere between pride and concern. General Harrison, the commanding general of the entire base, had personally requested Sarah's presence at a special ceremony scheduled for the following month. The event would honor Marines who had demonstrated exceptional technical expertise and leadership potential, and Sarah had been selected as one of only 12 Marines from across the entire installation to receive recognition. The selection was unprecedented in several ways. Sarah was not only the youngest Marine chosen for the honor, but also the only female recipient. The ceremony would take place in front of hundreds of Marines, including virtually every senior officer and NCO on the base. It represented exactly the kind of recognition that could transform a promising career into an exceptional one. Staff Sergeant Johnson explained that the selection had come directly from the General's office after reviewing performance records and recommendations from across the base. Sarah's technical contributions, leadership potential, and exemplary conduct had distinguished her from thousands of other Marines who served with equal dedication, but perhaps less visible impact. However, Johnson's expression also conveyed a warning. He had been in the Marines long enough to know that exceptional recognition could create unexpected challenges, especially for Marines who were already fighting to establish their credibility. Some people might view Sarah's selection as evidence of preferential treatment rather than recognition of genuine merit. Sarah's initial reaction was a mixture of pride and apprehension. She was honored to receive recognition from the commanding general, but she also understood that the attention would intensify both positive and negative reactions from other Marines. Her every action would be scrutinized more closely, and any mistake would be magnified beyond its actual significance. The weeks leading up to the ceremony were filled with preparation and growing tension. Sarah worked with her chain of command to ensure that her uniform and appearance would meet the highest standards for such a formal occasion. She also continued her regular duties while managing the additional attention that news of her selection had generated throughout the base. Reactions from other Marines varied significantly. Many of her colleagues expressed genuine congratulations and pride in her achievement. They recognized that her selection reflected positively on their entire unit and demonstrated that exceptional performance would be recognized regardless of gender or other factors. However, a vocal minority viewed Sarah's selection with skepticism or outright hostility. Some suggested that the general was using the ceremony to make a political statement rather than recognizing genuine merit. Others speculated that Sarah had been chosen to satisfy requirements for gender diversity in recognition programs. These negative reactions were particularly painful because they diminished not only Sarah's achievement, but also the accomplishments of the other Marines who had been selected for recognition. The suggestion that political considerations had influenced the selection process cast doubt on the integrity of the entire ceremony. Sarah found herself in the difficult position of defending not only her own qualifications, but also the legitimacy of a recognition program she had not designed or requested. She tried to focus on preparing for the ceremony while ignoring the speculation and criticism that seemed to follow her wherever she went on base. The preparation process revealed new layers of complexity in military protocol and traditions. Sarah learned about the history of similar ceremonies and the significance of receiving recognition directly from a general officer. She studied the proper procedures for receiving awards and the appropriate responses to formal recognition. One particularly challenging aspect of the preparation involved learning to manage the public attention that would accompany the ceremony. Sarah had always preferred to let her work speak for itself rather than seeking spotlight or recognition. The prospect of standing before hundreds of Marines to receive formal honors felt intimidating and potentially overwhelming. Staff Sergeant Johnson provided crucial guidance during this period, helping Sarah understand both the honor and responsibility that came with such recognition. He explained that accepting the award gracefully was not just about personal achievement, but also about representing all the Marines who had supported her development and contributed to her success. As the ceremony date approached, Sarah noticed changes in how other Marines interacted with her. Some became more formal and distant, perhaps unsure how to relate to someone who had received such high-level recognition. Others seemed to test her with increased scrutiny, looking for any sign that the recognition had gone to her head. The most difficult reactions came from Marines who had previously been supportive but now questioned whether Sarah's success had come at the expense of more deserving candidates. These doubts were particularly painful because they came from people whose opinions Sarah valued and whose friendship she had worked to cultivate. Sarah developed strategies for managing these complex social dynamics while maintaining her focus on professional responsibilities. She made a conscious effort to remain humble and approachable, seeking opportunities to deflect attention from herself to the collective achievements of her unit and the Marines who had mentored her development. The technical aspects of her job provided a welcome respite from the social complexities surrounding the upcoming ceremony. Sarah continued to work on advanced communication systems and train other Marines in complex procedures. Her expertise was needed more than ever as the unit prepared for a major deployment that would test all their skills and training. During this period, Sarah encountered a situation that would test her leadership abilities and technical expertise in ways that preparation had not anticipated. A critical communication system failed during a complex training exercise, leaving multiple units without the ability to coordinate their operations effectively. The failure occurred at the worst possible time, during a simulated combat scenario that required precise timing and coordination between air and ground forces. Without reliable communications, the exercise could not continue safely, and hundreds of Marines would lose valuable training opportunities that had taken months to plan and coordinate. Sarah was part of the team called to diagnose and repair the communication failure. The technical problem was complex, involving multiple interconnected systems that had failed in ways that standard troubleshooting procedures could not address. The pressure was intense, with senior officers demanding immediate solutions to restore communications and continue the exercise. While other technicians focused on obvious potential causes of the failure, Sarah took a more systematic approach to analyzing the problem. She used her advanced training to examine interactions between different systems that others might have overlooked. Her methodical analysis revealed a subtle software incompatibility that had caused a cascading failure across multiple communication networks. The solution required not only technical knowledge, but also creative problem-solving and the ability to coordinate repairs across multiple systems simultaneously. Sarah worked with her team to implement a complex workaround that restored communications while permanent repairs were completed. Her technical leadership during this crisis earned recognition from officers who had not previously been aware of her capabilities. The successful resolution of the communication failure allowed the training exercise to continue and demonstrated the value of advanced technical training and systematic problem-solving approaches. This incident occurred just 2 weeks before the recognition ceremony, and word of Sarah's technical leadership quickly spread throughout the base. For many Marines who had questioned her selection for the ceremony, this real-world demonstration of expertise and leadership provided convincing evidence of her qualifications. However, the increased positive attention also intensified negative reactions from Marines who seemed determined to minimize her achievements. Some suggested that she had been lucky rather than skillful in solving the communication problem. Others claimed that male technicians would have found the solution more quickly if they had been given the opportunity. These persistent doubts and criticisms began to wear on Sarah's confidence and enthusiasm. She had worked harder than most of her peers and had consistently demonstrated superior performance, yet some Marines seemed unwilling to acknowledge her achievements regardless of the evidence presented. The week before the ceremony brought unexpected challenges that tested Sarah's resolve and commitment to maintaining the highest standards of military bearing. A group of Marines from another unit began making deliberately provocative comments whenever Sarah was present, apparently trying to provoke a reaction that could be used to discredit her. These Marines were careful to stay within the technical boundaries of acceptable military behavior while making their displeasure with Sarah's recognition clearly apparent. They made comments about appearance standards, questioned her technical knowledge, and generally created an atmosphere of hostility whenever she was present. Sarah faced a difficult choice between confronting this behavior directly, which could be seen as being unable to handle criticism, or ignoring it completely, which might be interpreted as weakness or acceptance of inappropriate treatment. She chose a middle path, addressing the most egregious comments while documenting the pattern of behavior for potential formal action. The situation was complicated by the fact that some of the Marines involved held senior positions and had strong support networks within their units. Any formal complaint could potentially create broader conflicts that might overshadow the recognition ceremony and damage relationships that Sarah would need to maintain throughout her career. Staff Sergeant Johnson provided crucial support during this difficult period, helping Sarah navigate the complex social and professional dynamics without compromising her integrity or military bearing. He also made discreet inquiries that helped identify which specific individuals were driving the negative behavior and what motivations might be behind their actions. The investigation revealed that much of the hostility stemmed from Marines who felt that their own achievements had been overlooked in favor of what they perceived as politically motivated recognition. Some had been passed over for promotions or special assignments, and believed that gender considerations were increasingly influencing personnel decisions. Understanding the underlying motivations helped Sarah develop more effective strategies for managing the tensions without escalating conflicts. She made efforts to acknowledge the achievements of other Marines and to emphasize that recognition for individual accomplishments did not diminish the value of service and sacrificed by others. As the ceremony date arrived, Sarah had mixed feelings about the recognition she was about to receive. She was proud of her achievements and grateful for the opportunity to serve her country in the Marine Corps, but she was also aware that the ceremony might create new challenges rather than resolving existing ones. The night before the ceremony, Sarah spent time reflecting on her journey from a young woman trying to prove herself worthy of respect to a Marine whose technical expertise and leadership potential had earned recognition at the highest levels. She thought about the Marines who had supported her development and the obstacles that had tested her determination along the way. She also considered the broader implications of her recognition for other female Marines who would follow in her footsteps. Her success could inspire other young women to pursue careers in the Marines, but it could also create unrealistic expectations about what female Marines needed to accomplish to earn respect and recognition. The morning of the ceremony dawned clear and bright, with perfect weather for the outdoor event that would bring together hundreds of Marines from across the base. Sarah prepared her uniform with meticulous attention to detail, knowing that her appearance would be scrutinized more closely than that of her male colleagues receiving recognition. As she made final preparations for what would become one of the most significant days of her military career, Sarah could not have anticipated that the ceremony itself would become secondary to an unexpected encounter that would test everything she had learned about dignity, respect, and the true meaning of leadership in the Marine Corps. The ceremony was scheduled to begin at 1000 hours on the main parade field, where a reviewing stand had been constructed to accommodate the commanding general and other senior officers. Hundreds of folding chairs were arranged in precise formations facing the platform, with designated sections for different units and ranks within the base hierarchy. Sarah arrived at the staging area 90 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, joining the 11 other Marines who had been selected for recognition. The group represented a cross-section of military specialties, ranks, and backgrounds, but they shared common characteristics of exceptional performance and leadership potential that had brought them to the general's attention. The other recipients welcomed Sarah warmly, and she was relieved to find that none of them seemed to share the doubts or resentments that some Marines on the base had expressed about her selection. These were confident, accomplished Marines who recognized excellence when they saw it, and were comfortable acknowledging the achievements of their peers. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, who was receiving recognition for his leadership during a humanitarian mission overseas, took particular interest in Sarah's story. He had served with female Marines in combat zones and understood the additional challenges they faced in earning respect and recognition. His encouragement and perspective helped calm Sarah's nerves as the ceremony time approached. The preparation process involved detailed briefings on ceremony procedures, practice sessions for receiving awards, and final inspections of uniforms and appearance. Sarah was grateful for the thorough preparation, which helped reduce anxiety about protocol and procedures that she had never experienced before. As the recipients made their final preparations, word came that the ceremony would be delayed by 30 minutes due to the general's schedule. The delay created additional time for nervousness to build, but it also allowed Sarah to observe the gathering crowd and the elaborate preparations that had been made for the event. Marines from across the base were arriving in formation, with each unit marching to their designated seating area under the direction of their senior NCOs. The sight of hundreds of Marines moving in perfect coordination was impressive and reminded Sarah of the pride she felt in being part of such a disciplined and professional organization. However, as she watched the crowd gather, Sarah also noticed clusters of Marines who seemed to be engaged in heated discussions rather than preparing for a formal ceremony. Some groups appeared to be debating something intensely, with gestures and expressions that suggested disagreement or controversy. Staff Sergeant Johnson arrived to check on Sarah and the other recipients from their unit. His expression was more serious than usual, and he requested a private conversation with Sarah away from the other Marines. What he told her would add an unexpected layer of complexity to an already challenging situation. Intelligence reports had indicated that some Marines on the base were planning to use the ceremony as an opportunity to make a statement about what they perceived as inappropriate influence of politics in military recognition programs. The specific nature of their planned protest was unclear, but it could potentially disrupt the ceremony or create embarrassing situations for the Marines being honored. The information was particularly concerning because it suggested that Sarah's recognition had become a focal point for broader debates about gender roles in the military and the criteria used for advancement and recognition. What should have been a celebration of individual achievement had apparently become entangled in larger cultural and political issues. Johnson assured Sarah that security measures were in place to prevent any serious disruptions, but he wanted her to be prepared for the possibility that some Marines might express their displeasure in ways that could be personally challenging. He advised her to maintain military bearing regardless of what happened, and to focus on the honor of the recognition rather than any inappropriate behavior by others. As the ceremony time approached, Sarah noticed increased activity by military police and senior NCOs who seemed to be positioned strategically throughout the crowd. The additional security was discreet, but noticeable to someone who was looking for signs of unusual preparation or potential trouble. The recipients were formed into a line according to the order in which they would receive their recognition, with Sarah positioned fourth in the sequence. This placement would give her time to observe the procedure before her turn while avoiding the additional pressure of being either first or last in the group. At exactly 10:30 hours, the ceremony began with the arrival of the commanding general and his staff. General Harrison was an imposing figure whose reputation for fairness and high standards was well established throughout the Marine Corps. His presence immediately commanded respect and attention from everyone present. The general took his position on the reviewing stand while the bass band played appropriate military music. The ceremony followed traditional military protocol, with opening remarks from the base chaplain and senior officers who provided context for the recognition being awarded. Sarah felt a mixture of pride and nervousness as her turn approached. The first three recipients received their recognition with dignity and appropriate military bearing, and the crowd responded with respectful applause for each Marine's achievements. The ceremony was proceeding smoothly, with no signs of the disruptions that had been feared. When Sarah's name was announced, she marched forward to the reviewing stand with the same precision and military bearing she had demonstrated throughout her career. The announcement included a summary of her technical contributions and leadership potential, emphasizing the real-world impact of her expertise on mission success and Marine safety. As Sarah approached the general, she could hear murmurs from the crowd that seemed different from the response to previous recipients. Some voices were clearly supportive, but others carried undertones of skepticism or disapproval that created an undercurrent of tension in the atmosphere. General Harrison's demeanor was professional and appropriate as he prepared to present Sarah's recognition. His expression showed no indication of the controversies that had surrounded her selection, focusing instead on the formal ceremony and the honor being bestowed. However, as Sarah came to attention before the general, an unexpected incident occurred that would transform the ceremony from a routine recognition event into a defining moment that would be discussed and analyzed for years to come. A group of Marines seated in the middle section of the crowd began to engage in behavior clearly designed to express their displeasure with Sarah's recognition. They remained seated when protocol required standing, failed to applaud when recognition was presented, and made comments that were audible to Marines seated nearby. The disrespectful behavior was noticed immediately by senior NCOs positioned throughout the crowd, but the violations of military courtesy were subtle enough that immediate intervention might have created a greater disruption than the original behavior. The situation required careful management to maintain the dignity of the ceremony while addressing inappropriate conduct. General Harrison was certainly aware of the disruption, but his military experience and leadership training had prepared him for managing difficult situations without allowing them to derail important events. He continued with the formal presentation while military police and senior NCOs began to identify and document the Marines who were behaving inappropriately. As the general began to speak about Sarah's achievements, the disruptive behavior escalated slightly. Some Marines began to whisper among themselves, creating a buzz of conversation that was clearly audible and obviously inappropriate during a formal ceremony. The behavior was calculated to undermine the dignity of the event without crossing lines that would justify immediate arrest or removal. Sarah maintained perfect military bearing throughout this ordeal, keeping her eyes focused straight ahead and showing no reaction to the inappropriate behavior around her. Her composure under pressure demonstrated exactly the kind of character and professionalism that had earned her recognition in the first place. The general's presentation continued despite the distractions, and he spoke eloquently about Sarah's technical expertise, leadership potential, and dedication to the Marine Corps mission. His words were clearly intended not only to recognize her achievements, but also to address some of the doubts and controversies that had surrounded her selection. When the formal presentation concluded and Sarah was preparing to return to her position with the other recipients, General Harrison made an unexpected gesture that would become the most memorable moment of the entire ceremony. Instead of the standard military courtesy of returning her salute, the general took a step forward and initiated his own salute to Sarah before she had completed the normal protocol. This extraordinary gesture was immediately recognized by every Marine present as a clear statement of respect and support that went beyond the normal requirements of military courtesy. General officers did not typically initiate salutes to junior enlisted personnel, and when they did, it carried special significance that was understood throughout the military hierarchy. The general's salute was held for several seconds longer than normal protocol required, ensuring that every Marine present would understand the deliberate nature of the gesture. During this time, the inappropriate behavior from the crowd ceased completely as Marines realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The silence that followed the general's salute was profound and meaningful. Marines throughout the crowd rose to their feet in a spontaneous show of respect that had not been programmed into the ceremony, but reflected a genuine response to the leadership they had just witnessed. The applause that followed was enthusiastic and sustained, drowning out any remaining expressions of dissent. Sarah returned the general's salute with precise military bearing, but those close enough to see her face noticed tears beginning to form in her eyes. The emotion was understandable given the significance of receiving such a clear and public statement of respect from the installation's senior officer. The remainder of the ceremony proceeded without incident, but the general's gesture had fundamentally changed the atmosphere and meaning of the event. What had begun as a controversial recognition ceremony had been transformed into a powerful demonstration of military leadership and the values that defined the Marine Corps. After the formal ceremony concluded, Sarah found herself surrounded by Marines who wanted to congratulate her and express their support. Many admitted that they had been uncertain about her selection for recognition, but had been impressed by her composure during the challenging moments and by the general's clear endorsement of her qualifications. However, the most significant conversations took place away from the public areas where the ceremony had been held. Senior officers and NCOs throughout the base began to address the inappropriate behavior that had occurred during the ceremony, and several Marines who had participated in the disruption faced immediate disciplinary action. Staff Sergeant Johnson later explained to Sarah that the general's gesture had been carefully calculated to send multiple messages simultaneously. It recognized her individual achievements while also establishing clear expectations for how Marines should treat their fellow service members regardless of gender or other differences. The incident also demonstrated the kind of leadership that effective general officers provided to their commands. By taking a clear stand in support of merit-based recognition and respectful treatment of all Marines, General Harrison had reinforced values that were essential to military effectiveness and unit cohesion. In the days following the ceremony, Sarah noticed significant changes in how other Marines interacted with her. The general's public endorsement had effectively ended most of the open skepticism about her qualifications, and Marines who had previously been critical became more cautious about expressing negative opinions. However, the ceremony had also created new challenges and expectations that Sarah would need to navigate carefully. Her every action would now be scrutinized as a reflection on the general's judgment, and any failures or mistakes would be magnified because of the high-profile recognition she had received. The recognition ceremony had accomplished more than its original purpose of honoring exceptional Marines. It had become a defining moment that clarified expectations for professional behavior and established precedents for how achievement and merit would be recognized regardless of the demographics of those being honored. For Sarah, the ceremony marked a transition from proving herself worthy of respect to managing the responsibilities that came with recognition and acceptance. The challenges ahead would be different, but no less demanding than those she had already overcome through determination, competence, and unwavering commitment to military values. The weeks following the recognition ceremony brought unexpected challenges that tested Sarah's ability to handle success and increased visibility within the Marine Corps community. The general's public endorsement had effectively silenced most open criticism of her qualifications, but it had also created new expectations and pressures that were difficult to navigate. Sarah found herself in the unusual position of being simultaneously celebrated and scrutinized by different groups within the base. Supporters viewed her recognition as validation of merit-based advancement, and evidence that the Marine Corps was evolving to better recognize talent regardless of gender. Critics, while more cautious about expressing their views publicly, remained convinced that political considerations had influenced her selection. The most immediate change was in how senior officers interacted with Sarah. She was now known personally to the commanding general and his staff, which created opportunities for career advancement, but also meant that her performance would be monitored more closely than that of typical junior Marines. Any mistakes or failures would reflect not only on her, but also on the judgment of those who had recognized her potential. Staff Sergeant Johnson helped Sarah understand these new dynamics while ensuring that she remained focused on her fundamental responsibilities as a Marine. He emphasized that recognition was meaningful only if it was backed up by continued excellence in performance and leadership development. The ceremony had been a milestone, not a destination. Sarah's technical expertise became even more valuable as the base prepared for a major deployment that would test all their training and equipment. Her advanced communication skills would be essential for coordinating operations in a challenging environment where reliable communications could mean the difference between mission success and failure. The deployment preparation process revealed new aspects of military life that Sarah had not previously experienced. Marines were required to complete extensive training on cultural awareness, rules of engagement, and specific threats they might encounter in their area of operations. The intensity and seriousness of these preparations reminded everyone that their training had real-world purposes that could involve life and death situations. Sarah was selected to serve as the primary communication specialist for a forward operating base that would be established in a remote area with limited infrastructure. This assignment was both an honor and a significant responsibility, as communication failures in such environments could have serious consequences for mission success and Marine safety. The selection for this critical role generated mixed reactions from other Marines. Some viewed it as appropriate recognition of her technical expertise and reliability under pressure. Others questioned whether she was being given responsibilities beyond her experience level because of the high-profile recognition she had received. These doubts created additional pressure for Sarah to prove that she could handle advanced responsibilities without making mistakes that could be attributed to inexperience or poor judgment. She responded by intensifying her preparation efforts and seeking additional training opportunities that would enhance her readiness for the challenging assignment. The deployment preparation phase also provided opportunities for Sarah to work more closely with Marines from other units who had not been influenced by the controversies surrounding her recognition ceremony. These interactions allowed her to establish relationships based purely on professional competence rather than preconceived notions about gender or politics. One particularly significant relationship developed with Master Sergeant Williams, a veteran communications specialist who had been selected to oversee technical operations during the deployment. Williams had initially been skeptical about working with a junior Marine in such a critical role, but he quickly recognized Sarah's exceptional technical knowledge and attention to detail. Williams became an important mentor for Sarah, sharing practical wisdom gained through multiple combat deployments and helping her understand the complexities of maintaining communications in hostile environments. His endorsement carried significant weight with other Marines and helped establish Sarah's credibility within the broader community of communication specialists. The training exercises leading up to deployment became increasingly realistic and challenging as Marines practiced the skills they would need in their operational environment. Sarah's role in these exercises was critical, as she was responsible for establishing and maintaining communications between multiple units operating across a large geographical area. During one particularly complex exercise, Sarah faced a situation that would test all her technical knowledge and problem-solving abilities. A coordinated enemy attack on communication infrastructure had disabled multiple relay stations and severed cable connections, leaving several Marine units without the ability to coordinate their operations or request support. The exercise scenario required Sarah to rapidly assess the extent of the communication failures and develop alternative solutions using whatever equipment remained operational. The pressure was intense, as the safety of simulated Marine units depended on her ability to restore communications quickly and reliably. Sarah approached the challenge systematically, first identifying which communication pathways remained intact and then developing a plan to reroute traffic through alternative channels. The solution required creative use of equipment and procedures that had not been specifically designed for the emergency conditions she was facing. Working with a small team of communication specialists, Sarah implemented a complex workaround that restored basic communications within hours of the initial system failure. The solution was not perfect and required constant monitoring and adjustment, but it provided the essential connectivity needed to continue the exercise without compromising safety. The success of this emergency communication restoration earned Sarah recognition from senior officers who were observing the exercise. More importantly, it demonstrated to her fellow Marines that her technical expertise was genuine and reliable under the most challenging conditions they were likely to encounter. Master Sergeant Williams was particularly impressed by Sarah's performance during the communication crisis. He noted that she had remained calm under extreme pressure while implementing solutions that more experienced Marines might not have considered. Her ability to think creatively while maintaining attention to technical details marked her as an exceptional communication specialist. The positive feedback from this exercise helped solidify Sarah's reputation within the communication community and reduced some of the skepticism that had persisted since her recognition ceremony. Marines who worked directly with her during challenging situations became strong advocates for her abilities and potential. As the deployment date approached, Sarah received additional responsibilities that reflected the confidence her chain of command had developed in her abilities. She was designated as the backup communication officer for the entire forward operating base, meaning she would need to understand and support all communication systems rather than focusing on a single specialty area. This expanded role required Sarah to master additional technical systems and procedures while developing a broader understanding of how communications supported all aspects of military operations. The learning curve was steep, but her strong technical foundation and systematic approach to problem-solving enabled her to meet the increased demands. The preparation period also included intensive physical conditioning designed to ensure that all Marines would be ready for the demanding conditions they would encounter during deployment. Sarah maintained her excellent physical fitness standards while managing the additional academic and technical training requirements. Throughout this intense preparation period, Sarah continued to face challenges related to her gender and high-profile recognition. Some Marines seemed to be looking for any sign that she was receiving preferential treatment or that her assignment to critical roles was based on factors other than merit. Sarah developed strategies for managing these perceptions while maintaining her focus on preparation and performance. She was careful to avoid any behavior that could be interpreted as taking advantage of her recognition or expecting special treatment. She also made efforts to support and mentor other Marines, demonstrating that success had not diminished her commitment to unit cohesion and collective achievement. The final weeks before deployment brought news that would add another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation. General Harrison had been selected for promotion and transferred to a higher-level command position. His departure would mean losing the senior officer whose endorsement had been so crucial in establishing Sarah's credibility on the base. The news of the general's departure created uncertainty about how his replacement might view the recognition decisions and policy directions that Harrison had established. Some Marines wondered whether a new commanding general might reverse course on initiatives that had promoted more inclusive recognition of achievement and merit. Sarah realized that the general's departure would require her to re-establish her credibility with new leadership while maintaining the relationships and reputation she had built under his command. The transition would test whether her recognition had been truly based on merit or had been dependent on the specific leadership style and priorities of General Harrison. The departure ceremony for General Harrison provided an opportunity for Sarah and the other Marines he had recognized to express their appreciation for his leadership and support. The general's farewell address emphasized the importance of maintaining the standards and values that had guided his command, regardless of who might succeed him. During the reception following the ceremony, General Harrison sought out Sarah for a private conversation that would provide guidance for the challenges she would face in the future. His advice was both encouraging and realistic, acknowledging the progress that had been made while recognizing that continued advancement would require sustained excellence in performance and leadership development. The general emphasized that Sarah's recognition had been based entirely on her demonstrated abilities and potential, and he encouraged her not to let doubts or criticisms undermine her confidence in her qualifications. He also stressed the importance of using her success to open doors for other Marines who might face similar challenges in proving themselves worthy of recognition. As Sarah prepared to deploy under new base leadership, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from a young woman trying to prove herself to a Marine whose technical expertise was valued at the highest levels of command. The challenges ahead would be different, but no less demanding than those she had already overcome. The deployment would provide opportunities to demonstrate her abilities in real-world operational conditions where success or failure would be measured by concrete outcomes rather than subjective evaluations. For the first time since joining the Marines, Sarah would be evaluated primarily on her ability to accomplish critical missions rather than on her worthiness to serve in traditionally male-dominated roles. The transition from proving herself worthy of respect to demonstrating leadership and technical expertise under operational conditions represented a new phase in Sarah's military career. The skills and confidence she had developed through previous challenges would be essential for success in the demanding environment she was about to enter. As the deployment date arrived, Sarah felt confident in her preparation and ready for the challenges ahead. The recognition ceremony that had once seemed like the culmination of her efforts to earn respect had instead become a foundation for greater responsibilities and opportunities to serve her country and fellow Marines in increasingly important ways. The deployment began with a long flight across multiple time zones to a region where political instability and humanitarian crises had created complex challenges requiring both military expertise and cultural sensitivity. Sarah found herself part of a mission that would test everything she had learned about leadership, technical competence, and working effectively with diverse groups under stressful conditions. The forward operating base where Sarah would spend the next 8 months was located in a mountainous area that presented unique communication challenges. The terrain interfered with standard radio frequencies, satellite connections were often unreliable due to weather conditions, and the remote location meant that equipment failures could not be easily resolved through outside technical support. Sarah's responsibilities as the primary communication specialist and backup communication officer required her to maintain systems that were essential for coordinating operations across a large geographical area. Marine units conducting patrols, humanitarian missions, and security operations depended on reliable communications for safety and mission success. The first few weeks of deployment were dedicated to establishing reliable communication networks and training local personnel who would help maintain systems after the Marines departed. Sarah worked closely with interpreters and local technicians who possessed valuable knowledge about regional conditions, but needed training on military communication procedures and equipment. These collaborative efforts provided Sarah with insights into leadership challenges she had not previously encountered. Working through interpreters while training people from different cultural backgrounds required patience, creativity, and cultural sensitivity that extended far beyond technical expertise. She learned to adapt her teaching methods to accommodate different learning styles and cultural expectations. The local technicians initially expressed skepticism about receiving training from a young female Marine, reflecting cultural attitudes about gender roles that were even more restrictive than those Sarah had encountered in the United States. However, her technical competence and respectful approach to cultural differences gradually earned their trust and cooperation. One particularly significant breakthrough came when Sarah successfully diagnosed and repaired a complex system failure that local technicians and other Marines had been unable to resolve. The problem involved multiple interconnected systems that had failed in a cascading pattern, similar to the challenge she had faced during training exercises, but complicated by equipment that had been damaged by harsh environmental conditions. The repair required not only technical knowledge, but also improvisation with available materials and coordination with multiple teams working in different locations. Sarah's systematic approach to problem-solving and her ability to communicate clearly with people from different backgrounds proved crucial to the successful resolution of the crisis. Word of Sarah's technical leadership during this incident spread quickly throughout the forward operating base and back to higher headquarters. For the first time in her military career, her gender was rarely mentioned in discussions of her professional performance. The focus had shifted entirely to her abilities and contributions to mission success. The deployment also provided opportunities for Sarah to develop leadership skills through training and mentoring other Marines. Several junior communication specialists looked to her for guidance on both technical matters and professional development. Her experience overcoming challenges related to earning respect and recognition gave her unique insights into helping others navigate similar difficulties. Master Sergeant Williams recognized Sarah's potential as a leader and began delegating increased responsibilities that would prepare her for promotion to non-commissioned officer ranks. These assignments required her to plan communication support for complex operations, supervise work teams, and coordinate with officers from other military specialties. One of the most challenging leadership situations Sarah encountered involved managing conflicts between Marines who disagreed about operational procedures and resource allocation. The disagreements were based on legitimate differences of opinion about technical approaches rather than personal animosity, but they threatened to undermine unit effectiveness if not resolved constructively. Sarah approached the situation by facilitating discussions between the competing parties while focusing attention on shared objectives and mission requirements. Her technical expertise allowed her to evaluate the merits of different approaches objectively, while her communication skills helped translate between different perspectives and find common ground. The successful resolution of these conflicts enhanced Sarah's reputation as a leader who could manage difficult situations while maintaining unit cohesion. Senior officers began to view her as a potential candidate for advanced leadership training and increased responsibilities that would accelerate her career progression. Midway through the deployment, Sarah faced the most serious challenge of her military career when a major communication system failure occurred during a complex operation involving multiple Marine units and Allied forces. The failure happened at a critical moment when reliable communications were essential for coordinating air support, medical evacuation, and tactical movements. The system failure was caused by a combination of equipment damage from enemy action and software problems that had developed gradually over several weeks. Standard backup procedures were not effective because multiple redundant systems had been compromised simultaneously in ways that had not been anticipated during planning. Sarah was designated as the lead technician responsible for restoring communications as quickly as possible while operations continued around her. The pressure was unlike anything she had experienced during training exercises, as the lives of Marines and mission success depended on her ability to find solutions under extremely challenging conditions. Working with minimal sleep and constant interruptions, Sarah systematically analyzed the extent of the communication failures while implementing temporary workarounds that could provide basic connectivity until permanent repairs were completed. The work required her to coordinate with multiple technical teams while managing competing demands for limited resources and personnel. The solution that Sarah developed involved creative use of equipment that had not been designed for the emergency conditions she was facing. She combined civilian communication devices with military systems to create hybrid networks that could provide essential connectivity despite the failure of primary communication infrastructure. The improvised communication network that Sarah established proved reliable enough to support continued operations until replacement equipment could be delivered and installed. Her technical innovation and leadership under extreme pressure prevented what could have been a major operational failure with serious consequences for Marine safety and mission success. The successful resolution of this communication crisis earned Sarah recognition at the highest levels of command and effectively established her reputation as one of the most capable communication specialists in the Marine Corps. Recommendations for accelerated promotion and advanced training opportunities began to flow through official channels. More importantly for Sarah's long-term career development, the incident demonstrated that she could perform effectively under the most demanding conditions military service could present. The doubts and skepticism that had followed her throughout her early career were finally put to rest by concrete evidence of exceptional performance when it mattered most. The remainder of the deployment proceeded more smoothly as communication systems were upgraded and procedures were refined based on lessons learned from the earlier crisis. Sarah's role evolved from primarily technical support to broader leadership responsibilities that included training, planning, and coordination with other military specialties. As the deployment neared its end, Sarah participated in comprehensive after-action reviews that analyzed successes and failures throughout the operation. Her insights into communication challenges and solutions were valued by senior officers who were developing recommendations for future operations and equipment acquisition. The return to the United States marked another transition in Sarah's military career as she was assigned to a new position that reflected both her technical expertise and proven leadership abilities. The assignment included responsibilities for training other Marines and developing innovative approaches to communication challenges that might be encountered in future operations. Sarah's new position also involved working with civilian contractors and military personnel from other services who were developing next-generation communication technologies. Her practical experience with system failures and emergency repairs provided valuable perspectives on equipment design and operational procedures. The recognition and advancement that Sarah had achieved through exceptional performance during deployment created new opportunities, but also new expectations and challenges. She was now viewed as a role model for other female Marines and as a technical expert whose opinions carried significant weight in decisions about training and equipment. Sarah embraced these new responsibilities while maintaining the humility and dedication to continuous improvement that had characterized her career from the beginning. She understood that each success created opportunities for greater service, but also increased expectations for continued excellence. Looking back on her journey from a young woman trying to prove herself worthy of respect to a Marine whose technical expertise and leadership abilities were recognized at the highest levels, Sarah realized that the teasing and skepticism she had initially encountered had ultimately strengthened her determination and resilience. The general salute during the recognition ceremony had been a pivotal moment that validated her achievements and established expectations for how Marines should treat their colleagues regardless of gender or background. However, the real validation had come through sustained performance under increasingly challenging conditions. Sarah's story became an inspiration for other Marines who faced similar challenges in proving themselves worthy of respect and recognition. Her success demonstrated that excellence in performance and unwavering commitment to military values could overcome prejudice and discrimination while opening doors for those who followed. The transformation from a Marine who was teased and doubted to one who received salutes of respect from general officers reflected both personal growth and broader changes in military culture. Sarah's journey illustrated how individual persistence and institutional leadership could work together to create more inclusive and effective military organizations. As Sarah continued to serve and advance in her military career, she remained committed to the principles that had guided her from the beginning: technical excellence, professional integrity, and dedication to the mission and welfare of fellow Marines. Her story would continue to inspire others while contributing to the evolution of military culture in directions that recognized and valued the contributions of all service members.